he just shoved me out of his office, out of his shop. He just held me from my this thing and just pushed me. Never do business with friends and family. There are deliverables. You can't go to your brother or your best friend and tell them, I need it today, no matter what, right? The consumer has evolved, the consumption habits have evolved, but there has not been enough disruption from the supply side. Understanding the consumer and really knowing what they want before anybody else does is one of the biggest aspects of direct to consumer. Yes, it's a distribution channel, but this is, it starts there. Generating cash is very difficult online, and you can generate little cash, but generating tons of cash online is difficult.
Welcome back to another episode of the Inspiring Talk podcast. In this episode of the Inspiring Talk, we're going to talk about hustle mindset. We're going to talk about the hustle culture. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about how do you build and scale your direct to consumer brand. And in this episode, joining me is Bharat Sethi, who is the founder and CEO of Raise Coffee, one of the leading coffee brands of the country. Bharat is a serial entrepreneur. He has started 2 companies before starting Raise Coffee in 2018. And also Bharat is an angel investor who has invested in several early stage startups. In this episode, Bharat candidly opens about the early days of Raise Coffee and how he struggled to build this brand, how some of the vendors threw him out of the shop, some of the really interesting stories that he has never shared before. I'm sure you will get a lot of inspiration and insights in this episode of the Inspiring Talk with Bharat Sethi. Let's get started. Bharat, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Vijay, for having me.
Bharat, I want to straight, jump into this. When I started, my own company, one of the biggest thing that I needed to unlearn was I always thought, whenever I'm going to build a company, it's going to be family, it's going to be, people where I'm going to be treating them as a family members and stuff like that. And then soon I realized that, you don't treat, when you treat somebody as a family, that means when you have somebody at your home, you have to deal with them no matter, who they are. Even if you like them, even if you don't like them, whatever that is, you have to accept them. And then what I needed to unlearn was not treat as family members, but as sports team mentality where, in a sports team, there's a camaraderie, there is a, support, brotherhood, and at the same time, if you are not able to perform, then you don't make it to the final team, right? So that was the biggest thing that it took me a while to unlearn in my own journey. So is there anything that you needed to unlearn when you were starting Raise Coffee, particularly because we're going to be focusing a lot on the D2C brand and business on this episode?
Sure. So, Vijay, I have a simple rule: never do business with friends and family. On the contrary, because I feel you absolutely nailed it on the head. It's a mission when you're working, in a company, when you're starting up. I also was of the same opinion when I started back at a very young age, more than a decade back. And for me, I thought that, everybody's going to, enjoy, have fun, but immediately you realize that, it's not like that, because there are deliverables. You can't go to your brother or your best friend and tell them, I need it today, no matter what, right? Or there are no deadlines or heavy lifting to be done. So it's definitely the opposite of a family. It's not about when you work in a startup or when you work in any company, you are either highly involved or averagely or moderately involved in that setup, or you're not involved at all. When you're highly involved, there are a certain set of responsibilities and accountability that somebody has to hold. So it's the right comparison would be a mission. A mission could be any number of people coming together to achieve a certain objective. It could be something to do with a project. It could be something to do with a startup or a sports team. So there were many learnings that I had over this time period. Um, I was a sports person throughout my school life, and sports is like my first love, and
Mm,
football specifically. But I tend to spend a lot of time outdoors, so I feel like the sense of uh, you know healthy competition, this sense of you know the feeling of defeat, and then the feeling of winning is something that is very intrinsic to being a sports person, and that
being a sports person.
yeah, and that actually goes on with everything in life. I feel not just a startup. It's if somebody has, while growing up, or has been attached with any kind of sport, the journey is very similar. You have to train really hard. There's a lot of, you don't win always. There are bad phases, there are good times. And it's all about the art, the skill. Once you once you get to know the nuances, when you get to know the skill really, when you get very skilled at that particular sport, you are able to then do things which many other people can't, and to you then it starts coming very naturally.
So, so tell me something, Bharat. You mentioned that you were into football when you were like growing up, and you were captain of a football team, and you were also head boy. And I was like head boy of my school as well. And I see taking those leadership initiatives at my during my school and even the college immensely helped me in becoming in my own leadership journey or like leading the team and stuff like that. How do you think that the whole phase of your school and college time sort of leading things helped you develop those leadership skills that you have today?
I think there are two things to it. One is that it was came quite naturally to me. So it wasn't as if it was being forced upon by somebody. I naturally wanted to be in athletics, and I collected over 20 to 25 medals during my school time. So being fit was not the agenda then. I mean, I did not play sports to be fit. I played sports for the adrenaline of it, right? For the kick of it, for the competition of it. So for me, it was quite natural. That's the first part, right? But then once you get into it, I think it builds character, and that is the underlying current of everything you do after you leave your school and college. It's character, right? It's ethics. It's the spirit of competition. It's camaraderie. It's being able to lead a team by building a culture of mutual trust and respect. So there are many basics to what you would learn in a on a badminton court, or a tennis court, or a football field, or in a squash rink or something like that. So I feel like uh, once your character is built, once you understand that you will not win every time, but the path to glory, the path to success lies in this training, and in this wins and this losses rather. So I feel that it's really about that. To me, I think the journey, you learn about the journey of becoming better at your own skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Bharat, you had your business before Raise Coffee, and it was mostly the online business that you had. And after that, you decided to sort of start Raise Coffee back in 2018, which is a D2C brand, right? So what was that mindset shift that you sort of had to go through to from like just an online business to now thinking of starting a D2C business? And the reason I ask this question is I'm sure there are so many people who are listening to this podcast thinking of maybe getting into D2C business and start their own brand, which can also help them sort of get into that mindset of understanding like what kind of mindset should I really have if I want to start something like this.
Yeah, I started up very, very young, and I was very fascinated by entrepreneurship. Even when I was in school as a 16-year-old, I started trading online. Um, so for me, I feel that the point in my life when I was starting Rage, I had accumulated so much of knowledge, so much of you know failures, so many things that I should not be doing more than what I should be doing. So much of those experiences, so much of those connections with people, and understanding very up close about how businesses are truly, how large legacy businesses, that survive the test of time, how they truly built. And my aspirations had changed, in 5 7 years of running my previous companies. My aspirations had become very different. So I started Rage simply because of a lot of all of those learnings kind of came together, and I saw gaps, and I saw opportunities in this space, and I saw that there is a checklist that I had. There was a entire model that I made around what I need to be doing, and what all will contribute to success, in this field. So, direct to consumer to me is a mindset. It's very simple, and that mindset is unlocked by the power of data that you have when you build something online, because you are able to, you're able to be a very close spectator of your customer's journey. So much so close that you actually can know what they're doing, how they're doing, what kind of shopping habits they have, what kind of other products they're buying, and so on and so forth. So many of these very nuanced, details about your customer. So, and to me, that was very powerful, because the reason why most of the companies and brands have not been succeeding in the last 2 decades or so has been this entire disruption that has been brought by the consumption habits that have changed. The consumer has evolved, the consumption habits have evolved, but there has not been enough disruption from the supply side. So, understanding the consumer and really knowing what they want before anybody else does is one of the biggest aspects of direct to consumer. Yes, it's a distribution channel, but this is, it starts there. It is much beyond, direct to consumer just being a distribution channel. Direct to consumer is all about, owning the customer in a positive way, um, knowing, predicting what they would like to have, you know, predicting their buying habits, buying patterns, um, being able to control the journey, not just from the point when they're buying it, but till the point when they are actually enjoying it, using that product, utilizing that service. Um, and the ability to just build a brand online has been phenomenal, right? The ability to just influence the customer behavior online and change that behavior online. To me, all of this was very powerful, but it did not come to me as this one big lightning strike. I was seeing it, during my years when I started up in 2011 to 2018, those 7 years. I was seeing this very closely. My first company also was a e-commerce venture, but it was a direct-to-consumer brand because we sold branded products. We were not trading online. So, I mean, D2C was not even a term back then. But what is D2C, right? Then all of this combined together, and then you are able to sell a story, sell a commitment to the consumer, and make sure that you, as a brand, you stick to that commitment, and that generates loyalty, and that generates trust, and eventually that also, once it reaches a critical mass, you're able to then build something that can survive the test of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, for the people who are listening to this and might be thinking that, hey, you know what, I have this idea, and maybe they're just living in their own sort of on sort of cocoon, saying that this is something that nobody might have done, or maybe just not going out and seeing what's happening in the market and stuff like that. Like you said, one of the biggest thing is to understand customers and seeing like what they really need and what they really want. So what are few of the, like, sort of skills that people can look at developing, or maybe like the biggest mindset shift that they need to have about building online? Because a lot of people think that, hey, you know what, I'm going to start my business when somebody is willing to give money to my idea, right? And I think people or investors throwing money on the idea, I think that's not the case, which was happening a couple of years back. So for the people who are in that phase of like idea, like how do you sort of suggest that? What are the few things that you would suggest them?
Well, it's a loaded question actually. There are too many things that came to my mind when you
Yeah.
were, stating this point about there was money in the market and there is little or less money today. See, in India, I feel we're just at the tip of the iceberg today when it comes to fundraising and funding. If you look at the data, less than 0.5% of the businesses are actually able to raise money, even when you're peaking.
Hmm.
So the potential of India's startup ecosystem is tremendous. We're just at the beginning point of it. So any kind of capital, I feel, is less capital today. And I foresee it happening for the next 2 or 3 years. Yes, I mean, there's late stage capital, there's early stage, and so on and so forth. The early stage capital, I see that there's a dearth of, early stage capital even today, and I think it will remain for the next couple of years as well. So, so capital is one aspect, but successful. So now to the idea of what they can maybe, how to navigate this path early on. The first thing is be true to yourself. I mean, you're building a business, so build the business with the mindset of building a business rather than raising capital, because that mindset is not going
Hmm.
to be long lived. Because, as I mentioned, right, the odds are against somebody starting up anywhere, and then the odds of raising capital are, I mean, if you do the math on paper, it just doesn't make sense. So why not build something for yourself and for your needs and for your own dreams? Investors will find you. If you're doing something fantastic, investors will definitely find you, or at the right time, when you reach out to them, they will also invest in you. Some folks are in the ecosystem, and so on and so forth, and they're working on truly disruptive products, so they're able to raise capital. But most entrepreneurs or most business people starting up early will not be able to attract early stage capital in India today. That's the hard reality. So build the business following the basics of building a business, right? Um Now, specifically to your point about direct to consumer and how somebody can navigate some of the pitfalls of the D2C business, right? So, in common understanding, the first thing that everybody will tell you about D2C is that you are able to go over and above the middlemen.
Hmm.
So you're able to build something which you're going direct to consumer. Basically, that's the whole point. But then the the entire trade network that you would have rather gone through takes a certain percentage of your business for whatever reason, right? That trade margin that you would traditionally giving to a wholesaler or a super stockist or a distributor or a retailer, that is not going away, because that trade margin you're now giving for acquisition online to Facebook and
Hmm.
to Instagram and all these Google and all these other players. And in fact, it might be much more expensive. So most people think that they can just put up a shop and then they can get 10, 15 customers, or they can just start an Amazon store and then they will be able to. So I see that as the biggest drawback, is that
Hmm.
they're not. a lot of young entrepreneurs and even just people who are starting up, even with experience, they're not doing enough homework before starting up.
Mm.
So this is the second pitfall, right? Generating cash is very difficult online, and you can
Mm.
generate little cash, but generating tons of cash online is difficult. It takes time. You need to do a lot of things right to be able to do that. So you need to be in this journey for the right reasons. Um, and The third thing would be, most people, I think, another pitfall is that they like to do Me Too products and Me Too marketing styles and Me Too, right? So whatever has been working in their category or whatever they want to do, they will try to replicate it. Whereas the general rule of online businesses is that there is a lot of the cost of switching is very, very low. So for you to be able to build that brand reputation online and build that brand loyalty online, it is a much difficult task than you opening a store and doing that, or you opening a chain of stores, because the conversion rates and so on and so forth. There is proximity to the customer that will work out in your favor if you do that. So these three, four things are there that I can tell you. Cash is king. Do it for the right reasons. Do your homework before you start up. You should be able to, in the B plan that you make, you should be able to generate cash right off the bat, because there will be many unknowns that will take away that cash anyways. So those are some of the things, and work on significantly and substantially differentiated products, because if you're trying to replicate someone else's success, most probably you will not be able to do that, because
Mm.
that's the rule of the game.
Yeah.
Capital here attracts people who have more capital. That's the way it
Mm.
works.
Yeah. And I'm sure the journey for the past almost 4 years of building Race Coffee, I'm assuming the first year must have been the most difficult, phase in the entire process. So, can you take us through some of the really challenging, phase of building Raise Coffee, and how did you sort of navigate through it, and maybe a few lessons that you have learned there?
It's never a difficult decision, no matter at what stage and how much capital you have. It's never a difficult. It's never an easy decision, rather, to start up and doing it the third time. Like me, I I don't know what got me through, because to really think of it now, there were so many bets I made during that time. 2017 end is when I decided to do something fresh. And it's the euphoria of starting up is a lot, right? The initial first couple of months are like, wow, you're starting up again. But
Hmm.
reality hits you hard soon. It doesn't take too long, because you're without money, and you're without a salary, or you're without a safety net, and you don't know how long
Hmm.
that safety net will be away. How far are you away from the shore? You don't know that. And the consumers are, I look at the market as unforgiving. I mean, nobody cares if this product is from X
Hmm.
company, or this corporate or that person. The consumer really just cares about their needs at the right price point.
Hmm.
So will you be able to, in my case, will I be able to see success again? That question uh, can can keep on becoming more and more difficult to answer sometimes. So the first thing is the mindset, right? You have to have a extremely hard, mindset, where you are able to tell yourself, not anybody else, but tell yourself that this is going to work out every day, right? This is going to work out, and I'm
Hmm.
on the right path. And you keep getting those small wins, which make you feel that you're on the right path and you're on the right track. Everything else is on the sidelines, right? Whatever efforts you're putting in, that's everyday job, right? Building the product, understanding this consumer psychology. Um, I mean, you're making 15, 20 decisions in a day, like important decisions
Yeah.
when you start up. Like when you are running a company, you would make maybe one or two important decisions a day, which can make or break a business. When you're starting out, you're making so many important decisions on a daily basis. It can get to you, especially if you're very serious about building that business, about your life, you know, about how much of impact you want to make. Is your livelihood going to depend on it or not? So I think that it's never easy. I remember so many incidents when I almost gave up, right? When I was starting up in the first couple of months. But I think it's
Okay,
all,
wait. Bharat, I want you to share like those moments where you felt that, I just want to shut all of this down and like give up on this. Tell us, take us through that moment, because now all we get to hear, from the entrepreneurs is the success story, but a lot of people miss on those moments where, you feel heavy hearted, where you feel like, is it all even worth it? Should I even continue doing this? Is it even making any difference? Like,
yeah,
take us through that phase. And then also tell us, how did you sort of navigate the emotional side of it?
yeah,
I mean, obviously, tactical side of this and stuff like that is one thing, but like the emotional side of it, where
yeah,
like you said,
yeah.
feeling that
Sure, sure, sure. So
I think I'm gonna just,
yeah, before I forget, see, I think there are many incidents. Some of the incidents that come to my mind more often than the others, I can share those. I think one of the incidents that became, my driving force was when I was so when you're building the product in that phase, the the stakeholder management is very critical, right? Who are you going to work with? Because you're doing something that has never been done before. You are creating something out of the blue, in your own way. You're not inventing, something to treat cancer, for example. But I'm just saying that in your own way, you're doing something that is very significant, of sorts. So there was a time when I was going repeatedly to meet some vendors, and it was a hot. I think it was June of 2018, and my car broke down multiple times. But one day my car broke down, and it was like really really hot in the middle of the road, and it's like, it's one of those old Delhi roads when it's super chaotic, and I literally just froze in my car because it was so chaotic outside, that I could not have, but I had to go and meet this guy. And I don't know what happened or what stuck to me. I just switched off the ignition and left the car there and started walking. And to me, that was, quite shocking of my own behavior, because I would never do it, but I had become so rough, and I'd become so, I think just sad that way that I just left my car there and just tried to walk. Um, there was one time when I was sitting with a manufacturer, and I was trying to work out something with them, and I was going, again, I was pestering them, and if I have to be honest with you, and he just shoved me out of his office, out of his shop, in Tilak Bazaar in Old Delhi. It's, I think, the biggest wholesale market of India. And so they have like tens of customers howling at them. And he just held me from my this thing and just pushed me. Said, just nahi hai, just go out. um, there were many such incidents which really, one time I was trying to get some packaging things done, and somebody made me wait for 1.5 hours in a dingy office, and that's, so your ego, right? It has to be completely out of the room, because he made me wait for 1.5 hours, and then right in front of me walked out. Uh, there were many such things. There were many, not just one. There was not just one.
So Bharat, you started really early in your life, and by this time you've now built 3 companies, and I see this immense pressure that's being put on really young people to sort of hustle and stuff like that, where people are at 20s are feeling that they don't really have time. So what would be your suggestion, or what is your thought around the whole hustle culture, make it big as soon as possible, kind of a narrative that is out there?
Yeah, Vijay, I think the hustle culture, if somebody is uh, forcing upon you, or if you get to know, and this is very contextual again, but if you get to know about the hustle culture, and the culture of hustle is an aspiration for somebody, then I don't think there is a fit there, because people who actually hustle just love the hustle so much so that it's not something that they're doing because somebody else is telling them, or they read something, or they saw a video. This is my opinion, and this is also my reading of most people who love to hustle. It's not a discussion for them. It's not a point for them. They will not boast about it. um, so the reality is far away from what we see on social media, and I can tell you about myself. I never did. I never started up because somebody else wanted me to start up, or I read about it, or somebody. I honestly just felt that uh, it is going to be the right thing for me to do, and I'm ready to fail. I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to fail. I'm ready to. I had nothing to lose back then. So, so I feel. I don't either promote it, or I don't take it away from people who love to hustle also. So I think it's mostly, your own sense of doing things. And if you are working 12 hours a day in your 20s, I don't see a problem with that.
So, Bharat, when you look back at your own life, and say that if you were starting this all over again, what are those 3 things that you would have probably done differently, or maybe you wish you had learned, or you have known earlier?
I think one of the things would be to uh, keep your ears open, um, and and really uh, analyze and process the noise around you. Sometimes it can be very beneficial as well, and processing it is the creativity that one can have as an artist or an entrepreneur. Um, um, Another thing would be to be very insightful. Because I feel most people who end up doing differentiated uh, activities in any field, they have something, they know something about that industry or that area that others just cannot see it. To them, it's it's not there. So I feel in being insightful, uh, and then when you're insightful, you're able to predict the macros a lot. The ability to predict where something would be going in 5, 7, 10 years is is very, very powerful, and that can be done through a mix of data, experiences, insights, and your instinct.
What is the number one wrong belief about yourself that you held for the longest period of the time?
Wow, this is interesting. Nothing comes to my mind. Biggest disbelief. I don't know,
The
man.
wrong belief where yeah, sorry, go on.
Wrong belief. Yeah. So something that I thought that I'm.
Yeah, something like for me it was like I'm not good enough at what I do, was something that and a lot of people sort of in this podcast have said that I'm not worthy enough was something that they held for the longest period of time before they realized that they can go out and do things. So if there is anything like that that you thought that held about yourself.
Yeah, I think I had the biggest misconception that uh, comparing myself to the first few years of my career to now, I think my biggest notion about running a business and about myself was that uh, you have to control people to get great outputs from them. And this, like,
Mm,
I'll say, just control. I think not just control people, but just control the outcome. And
mm,
to my, understanding, great things have happened when I've given up control and I've let go of control.
mm,
And this was very powerful for me because when I was starting Rage, I had to be in control, right? Because you have to, but the slow passing over of that control and understanding, because for me it was not that easy because I loved to be in control
mm,
of my situations, my surroundings, and then just the understanding that I cannot control a lot of these things, and then I cannot also control many of the pieces of my business. I can
mm.
let so I today maximize only a couple of pieces, right? Not trying to maximize or rather optimize 10,000 pieces, and it has turned out to be a blessing.
So, what is the one most commonly shared advice about entrepreneurship which you think is rubbish, which you think is like really, really a bad piece of advice that people can give out to someone?
I think go after your passion. So I feel uh, it's good to be a like a solopreneur when you follow your passion. It can be great if you want to have a very if you want to be your own boss. That's the easy way, right? So if you want to be a freelancer or a solopreneur, if you want to do something with two or three people around you, um, I mean, passion will really help you. But once you really start to go in the rigmarole of running a company, the entire baggage that comes with running a business, I mean, you have to. It takes away a lot from you, and your creativity, your passion just goes for a toss. Um, I mean, you could be passionate about being your own boss or being autonomous. But I think in most cases, people think that, hey, I'm passionate about, uh, I don't know, shoes. Let me start something with shoes. I'm passionate about alcohol. Let me start an alcohol brand. I'm passionate about, technology. Let me start a technology services business. It is a lot to. It can work, but this advice, I think, with entrepreneurs who really crack it, and with founders who really make it big, um, they marry passion with a lot more, things like opportunity, market size, skills of their co-founders and stuff like that.
Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of the Inspiring Talk podcast. I hope you enjoyed my conversation. If you did, don't forget to share this episode with your friends and family. That will help us take this conversation, take this knowledge and information to as many people as possible. And you never know, this conversation can change someone's life. So go ahead and share this with people in your network and let me know what you think about this episode in the comments below. I'll see you in the next. Now, go out there and do something inspiring.